Well, welcome aboard. This is another video. Apparently the long format seems to be kind of popular. We're not doing an EDC per se, but I want to show you what I carry and have carried for the better part of 14 years at this point. I've had other options that have come through my hands at various times. Many of those I've gotten rid of, not because there was anything inherently wrong with them or bad. I just found my preference and I tended to stick with it. And I'm demonstrating that right here. So the Glock 19 is invariably on the list when a handgun is recommended for carry, for being able to work with, for duty carry. Many agencies, love them or hate them, they carry the Glock 19 or some form of Glock. Now, is it the best gun? No. But let's go ahead and get into it a little bit. Let's talk it through and see what your list offerings would be. We're going to go ahead and set aside my loaded mags. That is a Glock 17 mag that I got specifically for the 19 back when I picked it up, and I marked it accordingly. And that right there, X indicates that it's an original mag that came with it, and number 1, because it came with 3 mags. So we're going to set that aside. I'm going to go ahead and remove it here from the fantastic and phenomenal Velo 4. I think it's how you pronounce it. Velo. Anyway, that is from Tennecore, and it is part of their Blemicore sale. I've had this one for some time now. If you haven't checked them out, between the holster makers out there right now, Tennecore, Filster, Darkstar Gear, you have options, there's quality, there's no excuse to be going cheap. If you're going to carry a tool, make sure it's a good one. Let's go ahead and safely lock that back. We're going to show clear, no magazine, nothing in there. Chamber is in fact clear, and emphasize again, right there, clear. So, safe direction, striker down, trigger back. Right here, you're looking at my Glock 19. Now, there are many out there. Everyone has them or has at some point. Probably they've been recommended it or they tried it. But this one, this is mine. Over the years, it has seen different sights, but the ones that I finally settled on are the Ameriglow Spartan Tactical night sights. No fiber optics in there. They're just tritium and a bright orange dot at the front, with an essentially blacked out rear in the dark. They do have 2 tritium ampules in the rear, and simple is better, which is one of the reasons that the Glock 19 is truly my one gun. Over the years, I have had the pleasure of trying out the likes of Smith & Wesson, Walter, H&K, CZ, and I have nothing bad to say for them, okay? Even Sig Sauer, I mean, some of their new stuff, we can debate on that. But there is a plethora of options. And of all the ones out there, this is what I chose to stick with. It has seen a lot of carry, a huge number of rounds, and here's going to be a jaw dropper for some of you. I'm not a rich individual. I work a pretty standard job. And so, you know, I have to be sparing with how I put money out there. And part of that means I don't keep everything that comes across and ends up in my hands. At a certain point, you know, you pick and choose what you're going to stick with. And so this Glock 19, over the course of 14 years, and if you break down the numbers, is not that significant, but it has nearly 60,000 rounds through it at this point. A few weeks back, I put a post on one of the Facebook forum pages, and I was crossing the 55,000 round mark. And part of that is, it just works. It's reliable, it's durable. I mean, there has been some springs changed out, obviously. The locking block inside, that has been replaced. And the original parts that are left, the slide, the frame here, the slide stop, and the barrel. And none of those have a huge amount of wear on them. I mean, there's some surface wear, which is just a reality of using and carrying a gun. Now, we're going to take it off camera here for a moment and get to the internals, but I don't want to get blocked out here for showing you all the wrong thing. So we have a frame. This is a relatively new RSA assembly. And then my barrel and the slide. Let's start with the slide here for a minute because this is the interesting part. You can see where I have rail rub wear. You can see that I have some gunk in there. I do need to take it apart and really do a good scrub down and clean on it. You can see some barrel hood wear on the inside of the slide. But as a whole, this thing has done exactly what I ask it to every time I squeeze the trigger and I'm working with it, whether in a class or just enjoying some good time on the range. It has done the job. And that's the biggest thing. There are other guns out there, other companies that come out with a new product every so often. They truly innovate, which is one of the things people gripe about with Glock. It's the same every time, no matter what. But when it comes down to it, I know very few that can honestly say they have a fortune worth of rounds through it over the course of time. Now, there are some, they do torture tests, they do stress tests, and they're going to mag dump and do whatever they do. I've rarely mag dumped, but what you see on there is honest use, honest wear. My slide stop here, I don't call it a slide release, it is a slide stop. Getting that actuated with your thumb is quite difficult, but that's holster wear and handling wear. As you can see, I have a shiny locking block. If any of you know the original Gen 4s, not all of them, but most of them came out with a blackened, I think it was some kind of a nitride coated locking block. So that is a new locking block. On the rails here, you can see some wear, certainly, but I've taken care of it. I do clean it. I do use quality oil on it. The sear there, that is new. That is a replacement. But the original one had rounded out here at the back. And so while it was a very smooth, clean pull, and I did enjoy that, the reality is it was unsafe. And so I went ahead and changed it out. And so what you see here is an original slide, original barrel, and original frame, Glock 19, with very minimal mods. On occasion, I have some kind of a grip tape on it. I went ahead and peeled that off because I wanted to be able to show the frame. It is worn. It has been carried. It has been used. And it still functions. And that's what matters to me the most. Like I said, I don't have fortunes to spend on things. And many of us don't, especially in the current climate of economy, if you will. And so I have stuck with one gun. And you can say what you want, but when you take care of something, when you use it, you get to know it well, and it just holds up over the years. I use a high-quality oil, so yes, I have some wear on the barrel, and that's on the surface coating. It's not even going into the metal. But the reality is, if you take care of it, it can last you a very long time. And I know very few people that get something and truly learn how to use it. They always want the newest, the latest, and the greatest. Part of the reason I chose Glock, it just stays consistent. Right now, if I had to replace it, which I have no reason to, I can go over to my local store. I can go through the process of putting in a background check and, doing the paperwork. 3 days later, I can go pick it up, and I know that I have the same gun. I mean, if something were wrong with this, I'd take the sights off, replace it, put it onto the new one, and call it good to go. But I know what it's going to behave like. I already have a quality holster for it. I pointed out here the Tenacor Wheelo 4. It's fantastic. I know that I can safely, reasonably carry it. It's not too heavy. Even fully loaded out with 15 rounds in the standard capacity mag, I know that I'm comfortable and willing to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And because of that, over the course of time, I have used it well. I have used it in dry fire. I have competed with it. I never got particularly good at bullseye. I mean, it is a Glock. And while they are fantastic, there are certain features and functions of it that just don't make it fantastic necessarily for bullseye. but I got it as a means for personal protection, and that's why I carry. It's one of those things that I wanted easy access to parts, I wanted easy access to holsters, and anything that I wore out in time, I wanted to be able to replace. I did go ahead and take the medium beaver tail a couple years back. I chopped it down and pinned it in place, and it's good to go. I used some tacky putty material underneath there, so it's really held in place. And if you can see from my flexing that it's in there. I do have the Magpul G19 Carry Magwell. It's not very wide, but it's enough of a difference when it comes to your reloads that it's worth having on there, in my opinion. And the other feature is it locks my hand in there. Yes, my fingers are stacking, but when I grip and I do that milking stroke right there, it just locks into place. I know I'm not going to get slide bite because I went ahead and put that on there. Some of y'all are going to say, oh, just man up and deal with it. I have scars on my hands because I manned up. And you know what? Realistically, I don't like intentionally putting myself in pain. I have marks from various things over the years. I work with my hands, but the reality is I don't like to injure myself. So I've made my simple mods. Internally speaking, it is all factory original stock, and it just works. Many of you will know the sadly passed James Yeager. He taught a lot of us well. I like to say he bullied me into getting a Glock 19. I showed up at one of his classes, and I had the original LCP in 380, 6+1, and I learned a lot in that class, but let's be clear, I did not do very well because I have bear paws. And so I ended up getting this shortly after one of those classes. I did end up borrowing a Gen 3 for the remainder of the class, and I did rather well with it. And I went to my local shop. They had the all-new Gen 4, and so I got a really good deal on it. I put it on layaway, and about 4 weeks later, I went in and finally picked it up. And over the course of 14 years, I have carried, on occasion, something else. I'm going to bring one other in here from off camera. It is loaded, it is hot, and you'll notice that it doesn't have a lot of wear on it. That is a Glock 20 Gen 4. That's the 10mm bad boy, and it is a phenomenal handgun, but let's be real. It's large, it's heavy, it's bulky. It still has original sights on it because I really don't use it a lot. It has a specific purpose, and that's for hiking. That's when I'm working on one of the four-wheelers or side-by-sides and doing fence line. I want to have 15+1 with a little more energy behind it. But realistically, day to day, I don't want to carry that. This is what I'm willing to deal with. That's what I want to deal with, because I know that should I need it, and God forbid, because I do not want to be in such a situation, but it's what I would want with me at that time. Those of you who have considered carrying, who are debating it, who are looking at options, there's a plethora out there for you to choose from. And basically pick what you like when it comes down to it, but make sure, number one, it's proven. Two, be sure that you can get a quality holster for it. And three, be mindful as you make that decision. You are carrying a tool. It is a tool, okay, to be clear. Whether it turns into a weapon is up to you. Firearms are great fun. They are a wonderful means by which to defend ourselves from critters, from those who would wish us harm, however you may look at it. But acknowledge the seriousness of what you are doing, and consider this. I'm a believer. I believe in the one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And as that stands, I also believe in the sanctity of life. And while I believe in defending myself, according to Luke, he says that we have a right to defend ourselves. He recommended that they go out and buy a sword. And he told the disciples, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Now, the sword as defined there would be more along the lines of what we would see as a dagger or a fixed blade knife. In the modern era, when swords aren't the norm of carry, we have firearms. But remember this. Yes, we have a right to defend ourselves. Yes, I encourage everyone to be mindful of it and to think it through, to be willing to get home at the end of the day, no matter what it takes. But don't take it on lightly. Know that the means you have at hand can cause serious injury or end someone for eternity. And don't take that on lightly. Think it through. And I'm going to leave you with this. Again, I learned a lot from him. So, from the late James Yeager, remember your responsibility to be prepared for the fight never ends. Train well, study well, and when you consider your tools, choose it well, take care of it, and you'll have it for a long time to come.